yourself. Only time will tell.
Are you scared? Well, don't be. It's Mikey here from NindieNexus.net, here to give you a review of Sinner: Sacrifice for Redemption for Nintendo Switch. Sorry for that scary intro, guys, but what's going to happen here is I'm going to actually do a voiceover reading for a review that was written by Zach from our site with some background gameplay that he himself recorded. So let's get into it in 3, 2, 1. I wonder if there's been any other point in video game history where a new genre was introduced and did it so well the first time that nothing after it can meet the bar that was initially set. There have been many games since the release of the Soulsborne games that have tried to find success in that formula. In every other genre, I can think of platformer, FPS, RPG, shmup, etc. Games have improved over time and expanded on the original formula. However, just about every one of the Souls-like games seems to be an imitation, not an innovation of the genre. Sinner: Sacrifice for Redemption, however, comes close. In Sinner, you play as a warrior on a quest to rid himself of his sin. There's a short cutscene about this at the beginning of the game and one before each boss, but there's little else in terms of story. It is a shame because I like the idea. Each of the bosses you face represents one of the 7 deadly sins. You need to beat the physical representation of the sin to cleanse it from yourself. It's such a cool concept, and I would have liked more to that lore and world building around that idea. The game does draw a lot of inspiration from the Dark Souls games, both in style and gameplay. The setting is straight out of dark fantasy, complete with weary nights, crumbling castles, and evil abominations. The art style is great. The in-game graphics and animations are a bit cartoony and a little coarse, but that doesn't take away from how gorgeous the environments and enemy designs are. I especially liked the moonlit lake fight against lustful Chanel. Also, the story segments use great artwork and are told in static images with text below them. These black and white etchings are equally, if not more, fantastic. At times, they reminded me a bit of Gustave Dore's Paradise Lost illustrations. The gameplay also takes a page from the Souls book. The punishing difficulty and traditional controls will make you feel right at home if you are familiar with these types of games. Timing is key, and there is no poise-like stat, so you'll almost always have your attack animation interrupted when getting hit. Once I was able to familiarize myself with the flow of combat, I found it to be very satisfying. Each boss has their attack patterns that you can learn, and these change with their phases throughout the fight. The hitboxes are good for the most part. I only encountered a few instances where I felt I should have been hit or shouldn't have been hit. What Sinner borrows from the Souls games does fairly well. Fortunately, this is not just a clone of the Souls games. The developers do try different ideas to set it apart. For one, this is a boss rush game. There are no levels to traverse. You're able to pick between any of the 7 bosses right after the short tutorial, and those are your only primary enemies. There is no character progression either. You do not gain any experience points, new skills, new weapons, new armor, or anything in that vein. Instead, the game implements a mechanic they call level down gameplay. What this means is that instead of becoming more powerful, you have abilities removed or reduced as you progress through the game. Before each of the boss fights, you have to agree to remove some of your abilities. This makes it more difficult to beat the boss, but also causes you to adapt your playstyle to fit those restrictions. Do you like to retreat back to a safe place to allow your health to refill? Well, you can't do that when facing Wrathful and Grom because the self-heal ability is removed. These restrictions are permanent. However, when you beat a boss, you get something increased as well. For example, when you fight Greedy Faiz Tylus, your health and stamina bars are reduced. but you also get more health. I like the idea here. You may want to tailor your path based on what you need the most. In a way, it sort of reminded me of Mega Man, since you get to choose your own route, and there may be an optimal one for you and your playstyle. You're also not forced to bash your head against a boss over and over again, like in a more linear game. Do you usually tank a lot of the damage? Maybe don't fight greedy Faiz Tylus first, so you don't have to fight everyone else with lessened health. However, some of the choices for reward are weird. Why limit my health bar and give me more health? Seems counterproductive. Beyond the level down restrictions and rewards for beating a boss, there's little change to your character in the game. You have a variety of items at your disposal, such as healing potions, throwables, and weapon buffs. You also have two main weapons, a smaller sword with a shield, and a large two-handed sword. There are no additional weapons, armor, or items to change up. I do love customizing and leveling my character, but due to the level down system, this purer approach to the formula feels like the right one. There is no min-maxing allowed. You have only your skill and strategy to get you through. I like a lot of the ideas presented in Sinner. They're taking a newer, difficult to implement genre and trying new ways to keep it fresh. Not everything lands as solidly as one would hope, but if you need to scratch that soul's itch, this isn't a horrible game by any means. It just still wasn't able to defeat the biggest boss yet, moving that bar that the genre creator had set. Now, in typical Nindie Nexus fashion, we want to go over the joys and the cons of this game. Throughout the playthrough, we pull the things that we feel are highlighted through the gameplay, and then the things that we didn't like so much. So, for the joys, this game is new and innovative. The ideas it brings to the table give it its own identity while still incorporating ideas from the Souls games that we love. Second, the combat is solid and the gameplay is as well. And lastly, the art style is great, incorporating a dark theme, unique bosses, and fluid animations. And now, let's get to the cons. First off, this game is very difficult, especially towards the latter half. Secondly, this game has a minimal story, which was mentioned earlier on, so you don't get a lot of that lore that a lot of us enjoy. And lastly, although it does incorporate and innovate some of its own ideas and past ideas from the games that it received its inspiration, it doesn't quite successfully break that mold. And that'll do it for our review of Sinner: Sacrifice for Redemption from us here at nindienexus.net. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking out this review. Now, if this game looks interesting to you, you can pick it up on the North American eShop for $18.99. And we'd also love to give a special shout out to another indie studio who is the publisher and developer of this awesome game, as we did receive a review copy in order to make this video. Everyone who tuned in, thank you so much for taking a listen. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out nindienexus.net for more Nintendo indie content. Until next time.